You know when you read a local update, maybe for the weather or what's happening in town, and you just think, wow, that was actually helpful. It seems so simple, but there's a real art to getting it right. So today, we're going to break down just one of those daily posts from HastingsNow.com. We're going to see what makes it tick by looking at its structure, its tone, and maybe most importantly, where it gets its information.
It all starts with the tone, right? The post doesn't just throw facts at you. It kicks things off with a line like this. It's just so charming and relatable. I mean, who hasn't had that "why do I live here" moment during a blizzard? That little line, it instantly connects, and it totally sets the stage for everything else.
So, yeah, that brings us to the big question. What's the secret recipe here? What are the ingredients that take raw data, a little history, and a dash of personality and turn it into something people actually look forward to reading every day? Well, we're about to find out.
First things first, you gotta have the weather. It's the cornerstone of any daily update. But it's not just about spitting out a bunch of numbers. Let's dig into how this post takes all that complex meteorological data and transforms it into something you can actually use.
Every great update has to start with the hard facts. This right here is the essential data, your temps, your snow, your wind, for anyone who just needs the numbers and needs them fast. It gives you that solid baseline. But the real magic is in what they do with it next.
And here it is, the first key ingredient in our recipe. They translate that raw data into a simple story. Gusting to 30 miles per hour becomes the wind cranks up and can push snow around. See what they did there? It's not just data anymore. It's a narrative, and that makes all the difference. And this is the payoff. The story turns into actionable advice. It's no longer just a forecast. It's a game plan for your day. It's telling you exactly what you need to do. This is the moment where information goes from being just interesting to being genuinely useful. And of course, you can't forget the personality. A simple, charming little line like this does way more than just entertain. It builds a sense of community. It makes checking the daily update feel less like a chore and more like you're just having a quick chat with a friendly neighbor.
Okay, so they've totally nailed the weather. But they don't stop there. They add this whole other layer. It's not just about what's happening today, it's about today's place in history. This On This Date feature adds a really cool depth that you just don't get in most updates.
So for January 21st, we get this fascinating little trio of facts. You've got the birth of a Civil War general, a key figure in Minnesota's own conservation history, and the dawn of supersonic travel. It's like this little time capsule for the day, right? A quick snapshot across different eras and scales.
But here's the really clever part. This selection is not random. There's a local angle with Jacob Brower, which is super relevant to a Minnesota town. Then there's a national story with Stonewall Jackson. And finally, a global milestone with the Concorde. In just a few lines, it connects your local experience to the wider world. Pretty cool.
We've seen all the great content, but what's the single most important ingredient in this whole recipe? I'll tell you what it is. It's trust. And that trust is built on a foundation of clear, credible sources. This right here is what separates a good update from a truly great one.
So where does that trust come from? Well, let's look. First, the weather data. Boom, straight from the National Weather Service. That immediately gives it scientific authority and a baseline of accuracy you can count on. For that local history fact, they go right to the experts, the Minnesota Historical Society. This shows a real commitment to regional knowledge, making the local tidbits just as reliable as the weather forecast.
Next up, the National History Fact. Where's that from? The Library of Congress. Again, another source that brings instant, undeniable credibility to the table.
And finally, the global event is sourced from Encyclopedia Britannica. By laying all their cards on the table like this, by transparently listing these 4 rock-solid sources, the Post does more than just share information. It actively builds a real bond of trust with you, the reader. All right, so we've looked at all the different pieces. Let's put it all together and figure out the final recipe for why this daily update is just so successful. So here it is, the 5 key ingredients. You start with a human touch. You translate dry data into a clear story, you make that story actionable, you add some cool historical depth, and, this is the big one, you back the whole thing up with transparent, credible sources. That's the recipe for content that doesn't just inform a community, but really engages it.
And it ends perfectly, not with a big declaration, but with a responsible call to action. It empowers you, the reader, to stay informed, reinforcing its role as a helpful guide, not the final word. It's just a final sign of respect, and it's a really smart way to sign off.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What are your own daily information rituals?
What news or updates do you rely on? And more importantly, do you know where that information is coming from? Does it follow a recipe for trust? It's definitely something we're thinking about.